Rayan woke before dawn. The apartment smelled of tea and old papers. He moved slowly, careful not to wake the little mattress where Era slept. Morning light found a small note pinned to the curtain. Era's drawing of two people holding hands under a single star. He kissed the photo of his late wife on the shelf. "We will make it," he whispered. He had promised her, months before she died, that he would give their daughter a chance. He worked 2 jobs, one through the night as a janitor at a hospital, the other at a crowded cafe during the day. His hands were calloused. His smile was patient. Era woke to the sound of his voice. She climbed onto his lap and asked for school. He forced a grin and said, "Not yet, Habibi, not yet." His pocket held a list of bills and a crumpled application to a better school. He had circled one line, scholarship. He had not told Era about the application. He did not want to carry more fear into her tiny frame. He left for the night shift carrying the same metal lunchbox his wife used to fill. The hospital smelled like bleach and sleep. He wiped floors with a rhythm he had learned from exhaustion. He listened to the monitors and imagined a future where Era studied in a bright classroom. He scribbled notes on a napkin during breaks, names for her, promises to himself. At the cafe, he served strangers coffee with a soft apology for the wait. People came and went like weather. Mr. Zaiden came in often. He wore quiet suits and an indifferent smile. Once he spilled coffee on Rayan's sleeve and said, "You should aim higher." The words landed like a stone. Rayan swallowed them and kept working. He never asked for pity. Era watched him from behind the counter sometimes. She would draw tiny suns on takeaway cups. She hid coins in her pillow. At night, she would place a small paper star beside his journal. "For luck," she said. Rayan read her notes in secret. His heart split between pride and a tiredness that never left. One evening, as rain patted the window, Era overheard him talking to a framed photograph. "Just 1 year," he said. "Just 1 more year and I'll save enough." She did not understand time, only the weight in his voice. She understood promise. That night she opened her small pencil box. She decided to make a plan. She drew a house with a tall gate. She drew her father in a blue uniform and a cape that fluttered. She labeled the house school and the word promise beneath it. She practiced folding coins into tiny envelopes. She rehearsed a small speech. "This is for Baba." Her hands trembled with a seriousness no child should carry. Then she hid the envelopes inside an old shoe box under her bed and hoped with all. Rayan's days blurred into one long effort. Nights at the hospital, mornings at the cafe. His uniforms changed, but the ache did not. He kept a neat list of tasks and a secret file labeled Era, with every note about scholarships and interviews. He slept in scraps of time, holding the thought of her future like a warm stone. One morning, a wealthy man entered the cafe. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine. He ordered coffee with a voice that skimmed lines. He watched Rayan as if counting mistakes. When a tray slipped, the man sneered and said aloud, "Why serve when you could aim for more?" The room tightened. Rayan's face stayed composed. He apologized and cleaned the spill. The insult did not fall only on him. It landed on every tired soul who had been told to stay small. That evening, back at their tiny apartment, Era saw the bruise of shame in his eyes. She asked, "Did they say something about me?" He kissed her hair and said, "They're noisy today." He didn't want her to carry the sting, but the words echoed in their small kitchen. At school, Era's teacher announced a contest, "Draw your hero." Era's teacher smiled when she rang the bell. The children cheered. Era listened, her pencils already in her mind. She wanted to show her father not as tired, but as brave. She began to plan in secret. She drew Rayan in 2 uniforms. She drew him smiling under a star. She wrote a tiny caption, "My hero has 2 jobs and 1 dream." On paper, the truth was simple. At home, it was complicated. Rayan found coins missing from a jar. He discovered folded notes under Era's pillow. She had placed them there like secret offerings. He opened the notes. Era's handwriting was small and firm. For school, she had scrawled. He felt a swell of pride and terror. He could not tell her he was scared. Then the world around them shifted. The teacher posted the winning drawings on a small community page. One parent photographed Era's work and wrote the caption exactly as the child had. The post was modest at first. A few likes, a couple of comments. But then the pattern of the internet took hold. Strangers shared the post. People noticed the dignity in the lines. They noticed the caption. Notifications started to ping. Era pulled a coin from her envelope and held it up, proud and small. Rayan checked his phone and felt his heart accelerate. What happened next? He whispered. He did not know yet that the coin of small kindness had started a tide. Rayan scrolled. The post had reached a man who often sat in his corner booth. Mr. Ziden saw the face and paused. He recognized someone he had dismissed. A small shame touched him, brief and unexpected. The night felt thinner, as if it might tear open and change. The post did what posts sometimes do. It moved, from a classroom board to a neighborhood feed and then into wider hands. Notifications became a river. People wrote messages, "He deserves better." This is the real hero. The rhythm of strangers' empathy lifted them in a way the family had not known. Early one morning, Rayan's phone rang with an unfamiliar number. He almost let it go. He answered, voice low. On the line was a representative. "Mr. Ziden would like to speak," she said. Rayan's chest tightened. He remembered the spills in the words. He thought it must be a prank. They arrived at a glass building that scraped the sky. Era held his hand like an anchor. Cameras were not expected, but there were lights. Mr. Ziden stood at the head of a long room. He was not the same man who had mocked a waiter. He looked different in the bright room. He looked like a man who had read a sentence that made him rethink himself. He apologized first. Not a quiet apology, but one that asked for forgiveness in public. "I was wrong," he said. "We forget the people who keep our cities running." He turned to Rayan and said, "You should have been afforded more than a smirk. Please accept my apologies." Then he did something unexpected. He folded a paper and slid it across the table. "This is a scholarship for Era," he said. "And a steady job for you," the room exhaled. Era burst into a sob that was half laugh. Rayan found himself speechless. He thought of the nights mopping floors. He thought of the nights he had spent rewriting the past into something possible. What happened next surprised everyone, a reporter later wrote. But in the moment, there were only two people in a small world that had grown large. The cameras recorded the embrace. Strangers online wrote, "Finally," and tears, and a story I needed today. For Rayan, the world narrowed to the shape of his daughter's face against his chest. Back home, the little house felt different. Neighbors knocked and brought small gifts. The cafe manager offered a day off with pay. The hospital staff brought a card signed with gratitude. Era's teacher framed the drawing and tacked it in the office. The star in the picture seemed to glow, but life would still need tending. Bills existed. School forms demanded signatures. There were meetings to attend and schedules to rearrange. The tide of money and praise could not replace ordinary responsibility. Rayan stayed awake that night, counting the ways to stay steady. He promised himself to keep humility and to teach Era what kindness truly meant. He made a small plan. Enroll Era, save carefully, and never let pride block their quiet dignity always. A year passed in small, steady steps. New backpacks replaced old ones. Rayan went to parent-teacher meetings with a quiet, surprised pride. He learned the school's schedule and sat in the back at Era's recitals. Her voice was confident. He remembered the nights they had practiced the alphabet by the dim lamp. Era's drawing hung in the school office. Visitors stopped and read the child's caption. "My hero has 2 jobs and 1 dream." The lines in crayon carried a dignity that made people pause. Neighbors began to nod at the hospital doors. People smiled at the janitors. Era's star had nudged something gentle in others. Rayan wrote in his journal more now. He wrote the lessons he wanted to pass on: humility, work, and grace. He taught Era to fold a suit and to place coins in a jar for someone in need. The cafe changed his shift so he could attend morning classes. He slept deeper and missed fewer of her school moments. One evening after a long day, Era ran into his arms and said, "We did it, Baba." He held her and felt the tiredness slip. He opened the journal and wrote a short line to his late wife. "We kept our promise." Then he added, "She made the world stop and start again." Life did not become perfect. Bills remained. There were appointments and forms and ordinary strain. But the family discovered a steady rhythm. People messaged them with stories of small kindnesses. Era shared her new books with friends. She practiced generosity as something daily and true. Neighbors brought a small cake and left it at their door with a note for courage. Night nurses folded a card and sent flowers with it. Mr. Ziden came once more without any cameras. He asked only to see Era's classroom and to speak with Ryan in private. He handed over a small envelope and promised to pay for after-school lessons. Ryan measured the gesture and felt both pain and relief. She placed the money in a jar labeled Era's Future. The city did not transform overnight, but people were softer, kinder in small ways. On a quiet night, they sat on the roof and looked for a small, bright star. Era pointed. "There," she said. "Our promise." He kissed her forehead. "Yes," he whispered. "Our promise." Ryan placed the framed drawing beside his journal and folded a small envelope. Inside, he put bus money and a note for dreaming. He left it where Era used to hide her secret coins. That is how little hands changed a large room. A child's drawing nudged a city's attention. A single promise kept through long nights became a light that others could follow. Sometimes the world stops for a moment, and in that stillness we learn to look again.